Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. You're welcome.
Okay, I just like the coordinator have introduced me. My name is Dr. Adobe Okeke, the Deputy Coordinator, NAPE Awka Chapter. I welcome all of us to this great event, the fourth technical session in the NAPE Awka Chapter 2002, the fourth technical session. The topic that was chosen in this session is so apt: energy transition journey, and the role of a geoscientist. This topic is apt, especially at this period. The world is facing its energy transition in the history of energy. The world is now transiting from the use of fossil fuel to a low carbon energy source with respect to its production, supply, and consumption. So the topic chose is very apt. And again, the person to present this paper is also well chosen, as he is a guru in that sector, being the Nigerian Energy Transition Business Opportunity Manager in the Shell, BOM, in Shell, Nigeria, in the name of Mr. Johnbosco Uche. So we welcome all of us in this wonderful business meeting. We also welcome other people present here, Mrs. Ojelabi Adedoja, FNAPE, FNMNGS, who will be chairing this business meeting. Madam, you are highly welcome. NAPE Awka chapter welcomes you. Then, before we proceed, we are going to give, we have to start with opening prayers. But before we do prayer, I would like us to observe just for a minute silence for the mom of our able coordinator who just passed away in few days. A minute silence, please. May the soul of Mama and the soul of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Hope I can be heard loud and clear. Okay, okay. So we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Eternal King of glory, we thank you for a special day like this. We glorify your holy name. We give you thanks and praise. We exalt your holy name for making us all of us to be alive and healthy, for making all of us to gather here once more to discuss a pertinent issue in the growth of NAPE, in the growth of the Nigerian energy sector, oil and gas sector. Father, we thank you. And we pray that all the deliberations today, the presentation will be informative, be fruitful, and will have a much take home, so that we will be able, so that NAPE will be able to contribute immensely to the growth of the oil and gas and energy sector as well of this country. For in Jesus' name we pray. Thank you,
Amen.
Lord, for we know that our prayer is already answered in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name
Amen.
of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So may I
Amen.
humbly hand back to my coordinator to continue the moderation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ada. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. I would like to call on the General Secretary, Dr. Chimuko Ifeanyi, to take us through the safety brief. Chimuko, you have the floor.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Thank you, my coordinator. Without wasting much of our time, as we all know, safety is of great importance in anything that we are doing. So being an online meeting, for us to have a fruitful discussion, there's need for us, if you are joining from home or from your workplace, ensure that your headsets or your speaker is loud enough for you to hear what we can discuss. Also, please, it's advisable for us not to dub or in one way try to record what we are discussing. All the sole rights for recording of today's technical meeting lies with NAPE. So I think NAPE has the sole right to record it. And we're also advisable to avoid any disruption in any way. So once you're not talking, once you're not contributing to the TM today, kindly put your mic on mute so that, put it in muting so that it cannot be able to hear what you are saying of the TM. Having said that, we pray that we should keep eye to all the participants that we're having today so that we will not have an intruder within our midst. I wish us a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my Evo Jensek. From our agenda, we are ready in the coordinator's remark. Tunde, please, let's roll. Yeah, I would like to welcome us all officially to this important technical meeting. And I want to assure you, like the deputy coordinator has already said, this is another interesting edition. You can't imagine talking about energy transition and you're bringing a manager that is in charge of that sector to come and speak to us. So we are blessed to have him in the person of Johnbosco, fondly known as JB. And what blessing do we have again? You can't imagine having, if I'm not mistaken, the first female president of NAPE, Jelabi. I stand to be corrected, to chair this event. So you are out for an interesting meeting. So next slide, Tunde, please. Yeah, go to the next slide. So I would like to start off by trying to, get you, familiarized with many of our ESCO. Like you all well know, I'm the coordinator, and the beautiful lady that just opened us to this event is Dr. Adobe. She is the deputy coordinator with Mine and Steel. And the gentleman that just took us through the brief is Dr. Augustine Chumoko. He is the General Secretary. Another beautiful lady with us, Dr. Oge. Currently, she should be on air. She's on her way to UK for an important event, yeah. So Oge is the Publicity Secretary. That's why we are having the Gen Secretary standing for her for the brief. Also, we have our editor-in-chief for what we call the technical chair, Dr. Kevin Chema. Kevin Chema is meant to be on the call. Currently, he's in France for his postdoctoral degree, postdoctoral research program. We also have Dr. Oxton from ESUT, Enugu State University of Technology. He's a financial secretary. and one of our big persons, Dr. Ibn Sabinus. If you have been following technical meetings, you will have enjoyed the technical presentation from him for the Bini chapter. That's Dr. Ibn Sabinus from Futo. We also have the young, handsome, vibrant man who is in charge of the young professional. He's no other than George Okeke. And we have our own father. We can't roll out some of these interesting programs without him being on the background to make it happen. And it's no other person than, unquote, don't say that I say he's a bushman, the big bushman, Professor Onwajide. He's here on the call. Prof, it's good to have your words. Yeah. To the next slide there. Yeah, it may be good to take us through what we've done so far. Owerri, a newly born babe, but I've come a long way, if I may say that. We had our first meeting at Awka, and it was handled by the Group Managing Director of Orient Petroleum. And he took us through gas utilization opportunity, a case for cleaner energy and economic development. This was quite an enriching program. And we have the slides and everything in NAPE repository. Next slide. Following this, we had another interesting one that have got some global reach by the current dean of Faculty of Physical Sciences, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Professor Bonaya Igwe. He took us through the critical environmental impact signatures and footprints in a consistently evolving energy regime. And these have gained a lot of interest. This was also followed by the one that was delivered at Abuja. We also have it. So if you miss out on some of these, you can reach out to NAPE Secretariat to get some of the recorded video. Next, please. This was followed by our own daddy, Professor Nwajide, who gave a meticulous lecture on analyzing hydrocarbon system on the basis of outcropping analogs. I mean, if you have missed this, it took us all the way from the cradle to the surface, down to the subsurface. Please, extracting it and asking for his permission to use it, because some of the pictures were rare and some of the analysis were first of its kind. So this takes us to today's edition. So if you are driving, you may have to park. Yeah, if you're in the office, relax, take a cup of tea. Because you may enjoy it too much, you may have to go to the conference room so that you don't distract others, because it promises to be exciting. So if you're at home, wow, I think that's the best place to be now. Relax and enjoy this talk on energy transition journey, the role of geoscientists, and Chief Johnbosco will be taking us through it. Next slide. Like I said earlier, we have the ravishing beauty always there for us. That's Mrs. Ajelabi Adedoja, FNAPE, FNMGS. She will be chairing this section. So before I call on the president or the VP, let me quickly call for the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting. I believe it was shared. If you have not got it yet, just check your mail. Many a time it's go to the spam. Please, all we need, as many that we are in the last meeting, just indicate by raising up your hand and we document that and proceed. If you were in the last meeting, please, just by a show of hand. Thank you, Professor Mode. Thank you. Who else? One of our fellow. And thank you, Professor Oha. Well, we have 3 already. So please, Secretary, capture this, Professor Mode and Professor Oha. I saw, Keke, Oga Keke also was there. We have 4, good. Thank you very much. That means we've adopted so we can proceed. Please, I would like to call on the president-elect to please welcome our chairman so that the show can start.
Thank you, Dr. Dim. Thanks for the very effusive introduction. I think the president is unavoidably absent today. So is the vice president. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the Advisory Council, and the Executive Committee of NAPE, and also the fellows, just want to welcome everyone to this meeting, and especially welcome the chairperson for today's session, Mrs. Adedoja Jalabi, NAPE FNNGS. Thank you for great education, and thank you for agreeing to facilitate this event. So let's just go ahead and have a successful and inspiring session. Thank you very much.
So, my chairman, you have the floor now. Today, you may help project the citation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dim, and thank you to the executives of the Awka Owerri chapter. Mr. PE, good morning, and good morning to all the EXCO members of NAPE that are present. I'm very pleased to be participating in today's meeting, and I'm very honored to introduce the guest speaker. Please, can you hear me? I'm just checking for audio.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So I am very pleased to be introducing the guest speaker. Our chapter chairman has already done some introduction, and Mr. Johnbosco Uche is not a stranger to anyone. He has been around NAPE for quite a while. He's been very active. Of course, we know his position as a member of the last executive, as the immediate past vice president. So he's also the Energy Transition Business Opportunity Manager for Shell. JB is a geological science student graduate. He's an earth scientist and a graduate of the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka, and he has an MBA from the Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland. He has 22 years of experience in our industry, specifically with Shell, Corn Oil, and Halliburton. And he's had a lot of technical and business roles in these organizations. And since he joined Shell in 2005, he's worked as an exploration geoscientist. He's been a team lead in SPDC. He's also had a stint with the SIEP in the Netherlands and the UK. And most recently, he was the exploration manager in SNEPCO from 2018 to 2021. I already mentioned that he is the immediate past vice president of NAPE. And due to his strong passion for organic talent development, he's really vested in developing young career geoscientists. And he initiated the NAPE mentoring circles for emerging leaders. I'm sure quite a lot of us have either participated in that program, either as mentors or mentees. So Mr. Johnbosco, thank you very much for agreeing to share your knowledge today. And we are very happy that you're taking the time to talk to us a little bit about the energy transition. So I'm very pleased to invite Mr. Johnbosco to give his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and many thanks, Madam Doja Ojelavi, for that intro. Okay, I think I'm still carrying an old background, but it's okay. It wasn't intentional, but I see I had an old background that I had before. So what I will do now, and by the way, either Madam or Tunde, just confirm that you can hear and see me as well.
Clear, very
Yes.
clear.
Loud and clear.
We can hear you, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. So I will start sharing my slide now, and let me know when it comes up.
We can see the first slide.
Okay, perfect. All right, so many thanks for that intro. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, on this call this morning, or maybe in the afternoon or evening, wherever you are, if you're joining outside Nigeria. And, the topic I'm going to be sharing today is around the energy transition journey. And, this is a topic that is very quite common these days. In many conferences, you hear energy transition as a country, at the company level. And what I'm going to be doing today is to bring it a bit, closer home in terms of, what Nigeria is really doing in this space, but also what we and the role that the geoscientist has to play. Because often times it's a bit of, especially when you see the younger folks, geoscientists still at the university, most people are a bit worried, really. Are we going to be losing our place in the energy solution of the world? But again, today, by the time I'm done, I think you can be the judge to really say what the geoscientist has to be doing in the in this world of the energy transition we're doing today. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing in about 20 minutes or so. And this is the agenda I really want to use. I think it's good that I, first of all, play and showcase the global context in terms of the climate change, which is really what is driving this energy transition. And then bring in the transition itself in terms of the commitment of this country, and also how geoscientists has been involved in the evolution of energy transition, because the energy transition actually didn't start today. But, it might be interesting to know. It didn't start today. You're going to see that in a second. And then I will now deep dive into what the geoscience technical professionals are going to play. And I'm glad when Madam Doja was even introducing me, mentioning geological sciences, but he also mentioned that I studied earth science. And that's what it is, actually, because when you talk about geological sciences, it's about earth. And if I also want to go spiritual, I mean, God created heaven and earth. So it's heaven and then earth. And it's we on this call that are managing that earth. So whichever way the transition want to go, in whichever way, it still has to happen in this earth. And that's what we studied as geoscientists. And then, of course, not without some challenges that I want to pose in the room. But those challenges are some of the things we also need to turn around to say, no, there are challenges, but we can surmount them as geoscientists. And then, of course, a bit of summary. So that's really the outline I want to be using for this session. So at the end, there's going to be Q&A. So note down your points and question, of course, going to be moderated by our chair. But I want to, first of all, I hope this is not blocking. Okay, I'm seeing you are sharing. I hope it's not blocking the view. I want to play the global context first in terms of putting us on the same page to understand where this climate change and energy transition is coming about. It's been with us, of course, if you take Nigeria as an example, there is desertification in the northern Nigeria today, more than ever. There is flooding in the southern Nigeria, more than ever. Globally, the climates are not really, exactly the same. I joined a session that Ademi Bero, Ademola presented something about a few days ago. And he gave an example that there was a day, the temperature in London, in UK, was close to 40 degrees centigrade, whereas in Lagos, it's about 28. You can imagine the temperature in UK being higher than the temperature in Lagos, as an example. So it tells you that something is really going wrong somewhere. And it's all around the climate change, especially since the Industrial Revolution came in place. When the Industrial Revolution came in, and again, we played a role in that, which you're going to be seeing in a second. So in 2015, the conference of parties, they all assembled in Paris, in France. I'm sure some of you recognize the Eiffel Tower, under the name COP21, where these 193 countries, if you include the European Union, is 192 plus the European Union, that's 193, came together to look at the challenge that is facing us today. And they realized that if we choose to do nothing with the way the temperature is rising, causing flooding, desertification and the rest of it, killing people, then something bad is going to happen. The temperature now could get as high as 2 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial level. And they made a commitment that they need to stop this by taking some actions to bring it down to, less than 2 degrees centigrade, but in ambitious case, less than 1.5 degrees. Now, the analogy I typically give around this temperature rise, just to bring it home, we can mention any number, 1 degrees, 2 degrees, whatever. It could mean anything to anybody. But to bring it home, the temperature of me and you today, human being, is roughly, I think it should be about 36, 37 degrees centigrade if you're really living quite good. If that temperature increases, maybe when you have malaria, just add 1 degree, 2 degrees to it. You have quite big fever and you have to go to hospital to take some drug. If that temperature goes above 40 degrees centigrade into 41, 42, there's a high chance you're going to die, because 3, 4 degrees above our normal temperature as human being is too high. It can kill and it's killing. And that's what we're saying here, that the climate, if it can add 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and if you're not careful, it can go to 4 degrees, then the impact is going to be huge. And that's what we want to arrest. And that's how, of course, the energy transition story and all the noise has come into play. Again, being said and discussed in different dimensions, which I really want to change that perception that is not really exactly the way it's being painted. But before we go and deep dive in details, let me remind us, and I'll come back to this again, around what the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals says. It's about 17 of them, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Out of those 17, 3 are really key in the story and the journey of this energy transition. 1, whatever we want to do, whatever we choose to do, as a company, as a nation, we should not create poverty. People have to have their food to eat. People have to, not be poor to survive, to live. That's number 1 of the SDGs. The second one that is also critical is that, yes, we do agree that climate action has to be taken, which is the 13th one, but we also have to provide affordable and clean energy. And I'm going to be coming back to that again in this presentation. So I just wanted to paint this global context before we deep dive more into what we as geoscientists will have to do. Now, what I've done here is to overlay what Nigeria has done as a country into that commitment that every, the parties that were involved committed in 2015. And I've kind of developed this roadmap from the nationally determined contribution which Nigeria submitted initially in 2017, because every country was committed to submit this. Nigeria submitted initially, and in 2021, Nigeria updated their own copy, and the version is on the web. If you don't have it, I can share with the secretary for whoever I want to see this document. And this document actually has clearly articulated how many tons of CO2 emission that has been released in country with a reference date of 2018. And by the way, I know today I'm not going to be spending time talking about CO2 in terms of the chemical, geochemical composition, but just in a layman's voice, of course, CO2, methane, some of those things that, cause issues with the ozone layer and trap energy and that stuff like that. But that's not what I want to, not the technicalities today. But the total number that was emitted in 2018 from all the industries, including the energy industry where we play in oil and gas and the rest, agriculture and the rest, is about 347 million tons CO2 emission equivalent. And in that NDC document, Nigeria committed as a country that in 2017 that we're going to reduce it by 20% by 2030 and by 45% by 2030 as well. But in the updated version of 2021, which is the final document, Nigeria still retained the unconditional target of 20%, which means if the international community do not support Nigeria in the drive through this energy transition, we will reduce this 347 by 20% by 2030. And by 2030 as well, if we get international support, it's going to be 47. So it increases it from 45% to 47%. And if you look at other companies in the world, including Shell that I work for, Shell committed to 50% reduction by 2030. Chevron, Exxon, I mean, most of the companies also had their commitments, not too far away from this 50% number that we have by 2030. And if you can also read the distribution according to yourself, 60% is going to come from the energy industry, which is where we play in, and then the rest from agriculture and waste and other products. But also in 2021, President Muhammad Buhari committed at the COP26 in Scotland that Nigeria is going to deliver our net zero emission by 2060. And of course, by net zero here means it's not absolute. By 2060, we're still going to be emitting CO2 because it's difficult to completely eliminate. But we're going to net it off by doing some other stuff that I'm also going to touch, including things like CCUS. And that's why all of us have to join this country to deliver this target of net zero by 2060 by doing certain things. And to fix those certain things, we, geoscientists, will definitely be involved. I've put about 3 key levers that has to happen to fix this problem. And I'll come back to talk more on them. And those 3 levers are what you see. Let me put the laser mode, just so I can point as well. You see the operational efficiency. In the asset that we already produce today, flaring, emitting CO2, we have to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions by being more efficient in our operational activity. And one of those operational efficiency activities could then mean things like having a compressor that will handle associated gas that comes out from the oil, so that rather than flaring those gas, we gather those gas, compress it, and sell it either to domestic gas for us to power our homes or to export and make more money for this country. So that's one way. And then the other one, of course, is to increase gas, which has less CO2 emission compared to coal or oil. And we're doing that quite well. Nigeria has declared a decade of gas, which we're doing quite well in terms of that. The PIA has been enacted into law. A couple of incentives for gas in that space, which is quite good. And we're making some progress with some opportunity to improve. And of course, the renewable solution, solar, a lot of companies are doing a lot of stuff in this space. I know Shell All On is playing a big role in these regards. Again, hydro, geothermal. These are some of the levers I thought is going to help us to really achieve this target that the federal government has set. And of course, by 2030, we'll hit the target. But beyond 2030, we need to do more than those levers that I have in here. And those more, now we bring in about the offsets to offset the emissions. So if we emit, let's say 200 million tons, take away those 200 million tons so that it'll be net. So if you emit 200 from oil and gas production, you can plant more trees and plants that will absorb maybe 100. You can do a CCUS that will absorb the other 100 and put on the ground. So by the time nature-based solution MBS takes 100, you inject by CCS another 100. That means that 200 have already offset the 200 you've emitted by producing oil and gas. That's what this really means. And that is the only way we can achieve net zero by 2060. So I felt I needed to paint this picture first before I go into the geoscience role. So that's one part, really. This is purely around the climate change, the context, the global context, and the context in terms of we as a nation and what we're doing in this regards. That's one. Just take that as one, climate change. I haven't gone yet to the geoscience solution space. Then the second point I wanted to take out of this session is that when we're addressing the climate change, doing the energy transition, there must be clean and affordable energy to the population of the world. Two of them has to go hand in hand. And that's what I want to use this slide to depict. I'm using Africa as a case. But before going into Africa as a case, looking at the global population, if you look at the plot on the top right, today we are somewhere around 7.6, 7.7 billion human beings in this world, including me and you. It is projected that in about 30 years' time, around 30 years' time from now, around 2050s, we're going to be adding about 2.2 billion human beings in this world. If you look at that number, about half of those numbers is going to come from Africa, because Africa is still growing quite in terms of population growth. About 1.2 in that number, 2 billion is going to. And by the way, for Nigeria today we're about 200 million. In this same time, Nigeria is going to be double. We're going to be about 400 million people about this same time. So people are going to, there's going to be population growth. In addition to population growth, more people are going to move to cities, right? So people that are in the village today, Some of them are going to immigrate to Lagos, immigrate to other cities in the world. And therefore, as they immigrate, there is going to be more pressure to provide more power to power the house, power the industry where these guys are going to be moving to. So that is going to increase the demand and double by 2050. But if you look at the map on the left, it's not a good story. Because globally today in the world, out of these 7.6 billion people in the world today, about 759, 760 million people in the world today do not have access to energy. And you can see the split. Out of that 660, 570 are in sub-Saharan Africa, which includes me and you in Nigeria, right? And if you look at the population of Africa, it's about 1.2 billion. At 570 million not having access, that means about half of Africans do not really have access to energy. And this has to be fixed. So yes, climate change we have to fix, but we also have to find a solution to make sure we provide energy and power to these folks. Now, if you then bring it to Nigeria as an example, it's only 55% of our population that has good access to energy and power supply. About 45% do not, and that 45% is about 90 million. That's a whole lot of number. And this number, to fix it today, many of you know, in our power issues, today is up, tomorrow is down. We're producing about, delivering 5,000 megawatts of electricity to 200 million people in Nigeria. 5,000 megawatts, right? It can't take us anywhere. If you take Egypt as an example, Egypt has about 100 million population that are delivering today about 59,000, approximately 60,000 megawatts. If you look at South Africa, I think about 60 million population, they are producing also about the same 60,000 megawatts. We in Nigeria, 200 million, 5,000. So there is a huge gap. And that huge gap cannot be solved by oil and gas alone. Renewable will have to complement. That gap cannot also be solved by renewable alone. Oil and gas has to, complement. So we need both in the mix. Things have to evolve, but we need those two to fix this problem of energy gap that we have in Nigeria today. It's a lot, quite huge. So I just wanted to paint this picture just to see the challenge that is facing us and the demand that is posed before us that we need to fix. And now the question is, where is the solution space? And I come back to the 3 points I mentioned before. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, the climate action has to be taken. The SDG 3, we have to reduce the emission, increase the gas supply, I already mentioned. By doing that, we should not cause any poverty or more harm to what we have already. It's already too much to bear, and we shouldn't be able to, we shouldn't cost more. And therefore, we need to invest in renewable. We need to power the lives of these people that need access. And to do those powering their lives and generating new energies that is clean, you need money. The money, those investment does not come from, manna that fall from heaven. That money has to come from somewhere, and that money has to come from oil and gas production of today. And therefore, we have to get those money from oil and gas and invest it in the renewable solution to be able to provide low carbon products. Remember again, we live in the earth. This problem is going to be solved by us geoscientists, by that boy and that girl I have on the bottom left with that hammer that we know and we are used to. We all know when we go to the field. It is all the geoscience that has to fix this problem. And that then brings me to what and how we have to fix that problem. But before the skills that we do need, we have and have to deploy, let's even step back on this energy transition story that is, a bit noisy today. Before now, man has always needed energy to survive, and that has always come from the biomass. The trees, we cut down the trees and, we burn the firewood, and then we cook the food that we eat. Of course, in the Europe, they cut all their trees, and most of their trees no longer, they didn't have much of the trees any longer. They say no more, cutting those trees because they don't have any longer anyway. But the coal was discovered in that same Europe in the 17th century, which then displaced the biomass largely as a source of energy. And that continued from the 17th century, which is actually the Industrial Revolution time, which is all these temperature degrees that we have that is rising to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial level, started at this 17th century when coal actually was discovered. That's when this climate change started. It didn't start yesterday or today. And then the revolution happened, and then, you know, at some point it has to stop. But by the way, as you know, we have coal in Enugu. I don't think we actually have explored it as much as they've done in China, in Germany, and the rest of the Europe, or even in the Western world. But that's just to mention where it was coming from. And then we moved into oil. But before moving into oil, who are those that were the brain behind finding this coal? It was the miners, it was the ex-scientists, it was the geoscientists, it was me and you. So we have been on this journey. And then the oil bomb, you know, in 1859 was discovered in US. I think that was in Pennsylvania by the Rockefellers. And that's actually displaced coal as the major source of energy from 1964 till date. That has remained so. And of course, oil was key in the modern society development as we have today, including the transport, the aviation, the flights, the cars of this world, largely, you know, being powered by this oil as we have it. And of course, you already know, but just to remind us that the first oil was discovered in Owerri by Shell. That's in 1956. Production, I think, and export started in 1958 or so. So, and it has remained so with us till now. And then gas, which of course was found accidentally at that time, and we didn't think it was useful or economical. And by the way, let me also mention that, yes, even though now today gas is economical and viable, but it's still a bit challenging for the deep water in Nigeria. I know we've got the PIA, but it's still a bit challenging. But in terms of onshore and shallow water, excellent, including the Anambra Basin where Awka Owerri chapter is sitting today. Huge resource. And I think Anambra Basin is well positioned to really explore and take advantage of this gas we have today as a transition fuel. We haven't done enough. We haven't done enough. We need to do more to be able to, you know, key in quite well on this energy transition. And that also brings me to the gas, which again is me and you, the geoscientists that found this gas, again, first in US. And today, everybody, the country, including the European that has challenged us before, recognize that gas is not a transition fuel. So everybody has calmed down now. The Russia-Ukraine war have, you know, humbled everybody to cool down and take it easy. And I think we're taking it easy right now, that gas is a transition fuel, which Africans have been shouting for a while. We do have it abundantly, 200 TCF of gas. I hear about 600 is still undiscovered. It's me and you that's going to discover those 600 more to ensure that the gas to provide the power, those 5,000 to 30,000 as Nigeria has promised, is really achieved. And then of course, the renewable. And then people now think that in the renewable that it's not us, that we shouldn't be in the renewable space. It's absolute lie. That is not true. Because you cannot do renewable without solar. And by the way, me and you that are on this call, if you check the clothes you're wearing, your glasses, the laptop I'm using, whatever, is all, you know, products of oil and gas. So we cannot run away from it. But even in the renewable space, you cannot do with a battery. You cannot do with the solar panel. What are those solar panels made of? What are those batteries made of? These are earth minerals, rare minerals that is still me and you, geoscientists, that have to go find them. The lithiums of this world, the cobalt, the copper. And even these days, I also heard about you know, the less mature lignite as part of what they can also use for batteries. So again, it's still us that's going to find these products that we have to use in the renewable, be it in the solar or even in the wind energy. And by the way, even for the wind, before you even go to put those wind farms on the either shallow water or deep water, you need to find the geotechnical strength of the soil that you want to put those wind power. We still have to do the geotechnical study to be able to ensure that they put those wind in the right place. And then lastly, whatever we choose to do, be it the coal, the gas, the oil, or the renewable, we have to dispose them. Even the nuclear, I haven't mentioned nuclear. To dispose them responsibly, it is the environmental geoscientist that has to advise and do the work. So we have been part of this evolution, and we will remain so, because this is about the earth science, and it is we that study the earth science that can fix this problem that the United Nations has put before us. I've got about 2 more slides, and then I hope I'm doing well with time, but two more slides that should be done for Q&A. Now you see the role we have to play, but now it's about a skill set, because it's not enough to wear tie and shirt and come out and say, I'm a geoscientist, I want to work in the energy transition. You have to have the skill set. And today, I've mentioned the oil and gas will continue to run, right? Remain relevant because of what I've mentioned before now. And to keep it and sustain the oil and gas production we have today, it is the geophysicists, the geoscientists, the geologists, and the geochemists, and associated skills, petrophysicists, and the rest, that will continue to do what we are doing today. business as usual until more decades to come. And yes, it is business as usual, but the only key difference now, which every company is doing, including my company Shell is doing, is that we have to reduce the GHG that is being emitted, hit our target by 2050, net zero by 2060, by making sure that as we are producing this oil and gas, we are offsetting the gas that is being emitted so that it's going to be at balance. And one of the key ways to reduce this or take this carbon offset, it could be nature-based solution, it could be other technology, but the one that comes to us directly as geoscientists is the carbon capture, utilization, and storage, which is our bread and butter. We are the ones that have to provide this solution. Today, we don't have this solution in Africa anywhere yet. The World Bank is working on this project. I got a mail from them yesterday, which they're working with the Office of the Vice President to see how to deploy the CCUS in Nigeria across the industry, in fertilizer, in cement, in oil and gas. So it's coming, but it's still us, the geoscientists, that have to find the reservoir. As you can see in the model, where are you going to store this CO2? The depleted reservoir is still us. The saline reservoir is still us. Is there seal, top seal to retain it? What's the quantity you're going to store there? What's the pressure regime? What is the reservoir? It's still us that is going to tell them where to go put it. If we cannot tell them, then they cannot solve this problem, whatever technology you have in the CCUS of this world. The other way to work, and of course, renewable cannot power some of the heavy engines, the aviations, the shipping, but hydrogen can actually, and is emerging and picking up some space. You've got the gray hydrogen, the blue hydrogen, and the green hydrogen. But in the case of the green and the gray has less things to do with us. Well, the gray has, because we still have to find the gas. But the blue, we will find the gas that is required to generate this hydrogen to be able to power. And therefore, to find those gas that will power the blue hydrogen, it's still me and you that's going to find that gas, right? Talk about the renewables, the mineral and rare elements I mentioned already, so no need to repeat it. Battery and the solar panel require our skill sets. The geothermal, I mentioned, I remember about 2-3 years ago, we were in a workshop. It was our old famous fellow and former president and member, Omoshola Ebi, who then said, hey, have we looked at the geothermal, even in the West Transport Margin? Have we looked at the geothermal gradient that we have? Can we begin to think about solutions from this geothermal, like they have in the volcanic environment? Again, those questions can be asked, but it's team and you that's going to find the right place to have this geothermal to provide the energy sources that we need. And then, of course, the waste disposal in oil and gas, in renewable, and in nuclear will require us. These are the hard skills, but let's not forget the soft skill we've developed today. Now, geoscientists are known for problem solving. We are known for our creativity. We are known for data analytics. We are known for risk and uncertainty management. We are known for project management and entrepreneurial skill sets. Those will still remain 100% relevant in the energy transition space. So nothing to worry about, just take it and cross it over, just a bit of tweaking, and then you fit in. So that's the skill set that is required. And just to wrap up, there will be challenges. With some of them we know. There is negative perception in the geoscience space today that we are polluting the world, that the geoscience is dirty. Yes, oil and gas is dirty, but we're also trying to clean it up by using the things around CCUS, capture the gas and sell it and make money. Some universities, I don't think it has happened in Nigeria, are dropping some of the geoscience curriculum in their curriculum, like the Imperial College announced about 2 years ago, they will stop MSc in geoscience and petroleum, courses. It doesn't really help. That is discouraging. Today, ASU is on strike, right? We've got more people, geoscientists, being graduated in the labor market, but we don't have enough job for them. So it looks like, why should I study geoscience? Maybe there's no job. Again, it doesn't look quite good. And then the research, how much grants funding do we have around research? And then how much is our professors, largely on this call, doing in this space to research more for solution in the energy? So this could be some of the challenges, but again, they will be there. We can't run away from challenges. Is for us to surmount it and fix it. So to summarize, oil and gas will remain relevant for many decades to come, as you've heard me. And we, the geoscientists, will continue to go and find them and develop them. The minerals that you need for renewable products will require us, and we'll continue to go find them and develop them. The hard and the soft skill will continue to need. And therefore, the red text is what I want us to take away from this session today. There is an urgent need to publicize, and that publicity is partly what we are doing today, to let the world know the benefits and the value that geoscientists will bring to the society, around sustainable energy solution, which is going to be in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And those geoscientists, if you're looking for them, where they are in NAPE, and they're on this call. So I'll leave it here now. I'm back to you, Chair, Madam Doja, for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnbosco. I think that you will agree with me that Mr. Johnbosco deserves an round of applause. So please take a minute to, thank you, to clap for that was excellent, by the way. I mean, I've listened to a few papers and presentations on energy transition, but JB, you captured everything. It was very succinct, very well put, and that was a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. So just to kind of summarize what I heard you say before I go into Q&As, I made a few notes here. Our presenter spoke a little bit about what the energy transition really is and why, and the main drivers behind it being climate change, and actually, and also the politics of nations. We know that there is climate change, but there also is a lot of politicking behind the topic of climate change is a political one. There's the argument that the West already has enough energy, and so they have the freedom to tell the rest of the world what to do. But so how do you expect someone who doesn't have electricity and has never had it to then say, well, you know, okay, you can take away our energy resources, the cheap energy resources that we can find, just because the rest of you have it. So, I mean, that is a highly contentious and very politicized. It's not that, you know, countries don't recognize it, but the solutions have been very political and very touchy. But as geoscientists, we will listen to both sides of the argument, of course, and then do what we feel is best in our contributions to the conversation. Of course, you also talked about the growing population of the world being one of the challenges that we're facing, because if half of the population in Africa, they don't have energy, we have to, as Africans and Nigerians, consider the best and the cheapest way to provide the energy security that we need, while also considering the environmental impacts of our energy mix. And then you talked about the challenges that we have, not only the, and then of course, as you talked about Nigeria not quite meeting our energy needs, we're struggling to even attain and achieve 5,000 megawatts. We only hit that 5,000 megawatts maybe every now and again, and then before you know it, everything has collapsed. We have been experiencing the complete collapse of electricity grid in the last few weeks. And that is kind of pathetic when you think about the fact that countries with lower, the kind of resources that they have in Egypt and some other countries is not really up to what we have or what we say we have in terms of gas reserves. And they're doing 40,000 megawatts, 50,000 megawatts in Egypt and South Africa, as you mentioned. So we are hoping that we will kind of get there at some point. But that you really talked about, and the point has been made very strongly, that we need a good energy mix, not only of oil and gas, but also renewables, and our gas utilization, discovery and utilization is very important to Nigeria because we have proven reserves of about 200 TCFs of gas. And that as geoscientists, we're really we have an important role to play, not only to explore for these and develop these resources, You talked about the skill sets of the geoscientists, of course, and the energy that we need to play this role in the energy transition, that we have to not only retain our current skill sets, we have to continue to be geochemists, geophysicists, geologists, but we also have to know how to integrate technology into our work. We also have to start thinking about things like carbon capture and utilization, looking at our mineral exploration also, because all the batteries, all the inverters, and all the solar panels of this world are made with minerals and metals that we have to explore for in the earth surface and the subsurface. We also need to start thinking about the discipline of environmental geoscience, because when you're talking about waste disposal, we will also play a significant role in that as well. And then you have also talked about us adding our soft skills in terms of communication, multitasking, problem solving, and perhaps even playing politics. I'm just throwing that in. And advocacy, I think, would be very important, because we work with the earth, we know what's going on in the subsurface. We also need to kind of play some politics and business sense, actually. So it's not just we focus on, oh, well, geoscientists and that is all. We also have to learn some business skills. And so you're running, you don't want to just find the resources, but you also have to be able to market. So you don't just want to hand it over to some business person who is not completely connected with what you're doing and can understand or know the significance of the role that we're playing. Of course, you talked about the challenges that come up. Of course, there's the negative perception of the environmental pollution that oil and gas contributes, and we know that we require money or funding from the oil and gas business that we are in to fund the other aspects of the energy transition and developing other resources for the energy mix. So we're also looking at environmental challenges, as well as declining research in the universities, and some of the universities painting a very negative picture about earth science and geoscience at this time. So I hope that I have been able to capture and summarize the presentation. Forgive me for any errors that I may have made. I own that if I have misrepresented anything that the speaker has given. But I think I think that kind of summarizes what has been a brilliant presentation today about energy transition. So I'll be happy to take questions. There are some questions on the chat, so I'm going to start with the questions in the chat and push them to our speaker to take them, questions and comments first, and then I will invite people who do have questions to perhaps raise their hands, and then we will invite them to unmute themselves. So the first one comes from Dr. Kenny Ladipo, who says this is more of a comment than a question, and that CCS is a quick win to achieve the set target even as early as 2030, because JB mentioned that we have targets in reducing emissions like as in 2030, 2060, 2050. And he said we should remember that integrated reservoir modeling, which is currently a practice in oil and gas development, is an important set of skills that geoscientists and other professionals can easily deploy. So I think that really wasn't a question, but that was more of a comment. So I'm going to give you the second question by Dr. Ladipo, and then perhaps invite you to make a comment. He says, will you agree that harnessing high temperature formation waters, I'm assuming this means geothermal, can be a veritable way of harnessing hydrothermal energy? There are some recent studies which has demonstrated that this is feasible and efficient and a means to contribute to net zero. Would you like to comment on those first two?
Yeah. No, thanks you, madam. And again, thank you, our own Baba Kenny, for those the comment and the question. And I think I fully do agree with you. And the only comment I want to first make on your first comment is that 2030, yes, CCS can help. And just to manage expectation from what the work that happened globally in the world, it takes about 5 to 7 years from when you initiate the study to when you execute a CCS project. Is capital intensive, is a huge work. So to really hit and get CCS to play a role before 2030, then that work has to start now, because we barely have 7 years to 2030. So, and that's why I think we might be more on the other side of after 2030. But yes, 2030 is possible. But if it's 2030, that work has to then start today, which, well, of course, there has been some movement in the country. But to your question specifically, yes, I do agree, Baba Kenny, on the harnessing of the hydrothermal energy using the water temperature. It might interest you to know, and I know you are involved in this, that some of those HPHT wells, high temperature, high pressure well, can also then be looked at now to see, can we use them, from being the temperature already to really complement targeting a high temperature gradient area like, the West Transform margin or the volcanic environment area. But even for where the temperature gradient is not that huge, like in the Niger Delta, but we've gotten into high temperature water, can we really leverage it? So the answer is absolutely yes, Baba Kenny.
Thank you very much, JB. I hope that Dr. Ladipo is satisfied. There is somebody, Mr. Valentine Mobu. He says, an awesome presentation there, JB. Please, what can we do about our policies that affect all these things you've talked about? Because corruption has eaten deep into our system to allow and permit sustainability of the energy system sector. I'll let you answer that.
Okay, no, thank you very much. So on the corruption one, yeah, well, we see what is happening, but let me spend more time to answer the policy one. I think we haven't gotten it right for a very long time, and I think we've been playing lip service. But to be honest, in the last few years, there has been some movement. The Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum has done quite a lot. The country has done quite a lot. You remember the PIB has been around for many years, right, and even decades. But finally, we have it as a PIA now. So that, for me, is a big move in terms of policy to support this. If you read that PIA, there is a lot of movement and improvement, even around the penalty for flaring, around incentivizing for the midstream. Now we have even focused midstream, downstream to focus on some of these issues. So I think in terms of policy, we are just getting it about right. Let me also mention that outside the PIA in 2021 as well, we then also have the Climate Change Act that was also signed into law. And that Climate Change Act was also quite, well articulated in terms of solving this climate change problem in Nigeria. And of course, the decade of gas that I mentioned is also helping. So I know we're not yet there, but to answer your question, in terms of policies, we've seen a good line of movement. And recently, as if you paid attention to what is happening globally, the Vice President Osibanjo launched the Energy Transition Plan for the country and went to the US advocating for even debt servicing using this kind of climate change or energy transition work we're doing. So I think we're moving in the right direction with regards to this Valentine's.
Thank you very much. Okay, so there's one more here. He says, bravo, Mr. Johnbosco, for the excellent presentation. However, in the course of your presentation, you mentioned carbon capture storage, which is yet to kick off in Nigeria for some reasons. Considering a host of depleted reservoirs in the exploited blocks of the Niger Delta, what do you think are critical factors preventing our government and other energy stakeholders, such as IOCs, from showing keen interest in CCS, despite the obvious advantages? And this is from Emmanuel Adewale. Okay.
No, thanks, Emmanuel. Again, very good question. And I think you painted a picture quite right. But I think today, this is changing. I know most of the IOCs that you referred to, I'm aware, not just even Shell, I'm aware of other IOCs that are all thinking around the CCUS solution. It is capital intensive. We've also recognized that there is going to be a lot of collaboration in this regard. And that collaboration, I've been in certain meetings where it's also have been agreed that it's going to be pursued through the OPTS. you know, the OPTS is the arm of the, you know, the trade association for all the IOCs, and they want to use that channel to have one voice in solving this problem. And one of those solution space will be the CCUS. So it is happening. I can tell you for sure. I also know my company, we're doing some studies on this for sure. But also at the Nigerian level, like I mentioned earlier, the Office of the Vice President has given out a project to IFC, which is a World Bank organization. It's taking them that time to kick off, but they've held series of workshops. I don't know, many of you on this call may have attended, even though the target of that workshop has largely been targeting the cement industry, the steel industry, and the fertilizer industry has been the key target, not oil and gas. But they also realize that, just like the question you asked, that this CCS or the CO2 that will be captured is going to go to the depleted reservoirs. The guys in the cement industry and the steel and fertilizer may not be able to solve that problem. So they're coming to us in the oil and gas to collaborate as well. So I am aware that there's a workshop that is planned for on the 1st and 2nd of November this year with the World Bank for folks to come in together, about 100 people to come into the room to begin to articulate with the consultant that they've appointed to look at how to fix this CCS problem in Nigeria. And mind you, it's not about solving the technical problem only. You also have to look at the commercial solution. And that's why it might be taking time, so that you need to make it attractive for people to come and invest. And that attractive solution and commercial solution is what they are developing. So it is happening, Emmanuel, I must tell you. So maybe in the next few years, we'll begin to see the results.
Thank you very much for that. So the Dr. Emmanuel Madwawia wants to know whether you see continuity in policy when you consider that we have the upcoming elections next year, and don't you see any problems of interest?
Yeah, no, Dr. Emmanuel, I think it's a valid point you raised. And I think this point was also raised at the NOG conference in July at Abuja this year, around the decade of gas. And some of the propositions that were put on the table for some of the panelists was that the council or the committee that have to deliver that decade of gas, which is already ongoing, that they need to bring in people from outside the government and not just people in either NUPRC or the ministry. So if the government is able to do that and have people from outside into the council, then there will be sustainability, irrespective of the government that we have in place. So I think it's a valid point, and the government has to be deliverable. And that's one. But the second thing is that the documents are there. I mean, the PIA is there for any government that has come to be. And we just have to implement the PIA. And therefore, those documents, as long as we follow it judiciously, I don't think it matters so much. The only one that may suffer a little bit, if I get you, is that, yes, I know that today the CCUS is being championed through the office of the vice president. So the question is, next year, the vice president is no longer there. Would the new vice president continue to run this? But again, I know maybe with the consultants that we've had now through the world, but maybe that could help. So it's a valid point, but I think there are some solution space, like I referred to what was discussed at NOG, Dr. Emmanuel.
Excellent, thank you. And another one is, what is your advice? This is from Austin Mbemere. What's your advice, practical advice for geoscientists to go ahead in exploring the minerals needed, needed for the energy transition?
So the only advice I have, again, thanks Austin Mbemere on this one. So the only advice I've got for the geoscientists is to wear the cap of the entrepreneurial skill sets. I think today mining is going on in the north, both legal and illegal. But the question, because I think you're referring largely to around the minerals that is required, it's to wear the cap that we can be good businessmen as geoscientists. And also even for our lecturers on the call, and I know we discussed this, if you remember yourself, Madam Dodge, I think you were the chair when we had the UAP leadership forum at Enugu, where we were talking about the entrepreneurship skill set in our curriculum. That is going to help to address this point that you raised. If we can already at the university level at the curriculum beginning to think about the entrepreneurship skill set and mindset as geoscientists, then that is the only way we can see that it's not only oil and gas, because it's difficult to do entrepreneurship as a young geoscientist in oil and gas per se because of the funding. I know even in the minerals, it could also be there, but can one already start to think about how to get into this space of mineral, mining, whether in the south or the north, is what I can mention. But of course, the bigger companies also have to play a role here by the government opening all this type of stuff. Maybe this is something we also need to challenge. I know our own Ms. Rosendon is going to be speaking to us at the pre-conference workshop, but she was in the solid mineral as well. So the question is, are there some insights she can help to bring it into this space? And again, Madam Doja is also here, and she's in the COMEG council, right? So maybe there's stuff we can collaborate together in here to encourage people to play more in the mineral sector. Austin.
Thank you. And what do you think is the best way to achieve clean carbon technology within the shortest possible time, in spite of our unstable mining policies in Nigeria? What are the geoscientists' way of speeding up such a project? And this is from Justice Ike.
Okay, no, thanks, Justice Ike, for this question. So I think this question is in twofold. So one is around the clean carbon technology. So, and that one is quite easy. I can answer that. But for the one of how geoscientists can speed up this project, and also in the mining policy, again, because mining sector is not my area of strength. But in terms of clean carbon technology, I think a whole lot is happening already. So one of them is the AG facilities, the associated gas gathering facilities that we have these days. I know in Shell, for example, we have the Southern Swamp AGS. Other companies, Chevron, Total, Exxon, are all investing in this. Even the independent and indigenous as well. I think Demola Bello mentioned it as well during his presentation 2 days ago. So this technology is there, but it's just to ramp it up, to ensure that all the flares are eliminated. And most companies are working towards zero flaring by 2025. I think the first CMP mentioned they are even targeting end of this year to do zero flare. So, and you can't really do those zero flare without having the clean carbon technology to capture those gas. So it is there, and it's just to ramp it up, just to ensure there is no more flare. It might also interest you to know, Justice, that there was also this gas commercialization and monetization project being driven by the government. There are some third-party people that have already bidded for those contracts. And once I don't know if it's awarded, once it's awarded and they start, they will only apply technology to capture those gas, to monetize them. So that's one way we can achieve a quick clean carbon technology solution, I can tell you. But in the mining policies, I'm not familiar with the policies in the mining sector. But like I said earlier, I think we have more role now to play in the mining sector, even though, yeah, we spend most time on oil and gas, but it's time to ramp up, our activity level in the mining sector, Justice Ike.
Thank you. So I have another one by Dr. Ladipo. Before I do that, though, I think I'm going to throw a question in terms of what you think is a good way to, we hear about energy transition, we're talking about carbon capture. Somebody also already talked about us not really doing much in Nigeria in terms of carbon capture. But I don't really see companies, oil and gas companies, partnering with universities to develop technology around, or do any form of research actually, in terms of like promoting research around carbon capture. I was at a conference recently where there's a company developing this technology that allows you to re-inject carbon in remineralization of the carbon. So they are injecting the carbon not as a fluid, or they are putting it as a fluid and then putting the minerals, putting the rocks into some accelerated temperature pressure into crystallize this around existing minerals. So, and that is really brilliant when you're thinking that it's probably a more stable form of storing carbon as a solid mineral rather than as a fluid. So, and I'm thinking that why can't we do things like this in Nigeria? Is there some way to put either OPTS or just seed these kinds of things to for industry to partner with our colleges, our universities to develop research around clean energy?
No, thanks, madam. And I think that should be the way to go. And why I'm saying so is that as we're here, I know there are research going on in India around is lignite, the word you have in the code in that before you get to lignite, where they're looking for to say if they can use that as a battery, as an example, is all about research. And even the hydrogen that we have today, it came out of the research by some people coming together to say, hey, wait a second, you can really get hydrogen from water. Water is H2O. You put the water, you put the electrolyzer, whatever you want to do there, you separate the O2, the H2, and then the oxygen, and then you have your hydrogen, and then hey, you have a fuel. And that is the mindset we need to have. But to come home to your specific question around the channel, I think OPTS is something we can really channel, but because it has to do with the university as well, again, our UAP in NAPE can also help. And I remember the NCDMB, when they presented at the leadership forum in Port Harcourt, if I think it's NCDMB board, not NDDC, they said they've got funds available for research, and this research that you propose now can fit into those type of funding. They've got fund available for university lecturers to come in and propose to say, this is what you want to do, and this is the solution you want to bring. And because that the challenge you put on the table now is going to help to address Nigerian problem. There is value. I think it's going to be easy for that type of value proposition to go scale through. If we go through that NCDB, I think Philip Ajebile was the coordinator. So for those lecturers on the call, it's something you can already link up with him, because I know there was a presentation in that regards, and there is a fund available. And then the other last one is the IOCs are doing all this stuff. Most of the university lecturers, they want to come and do sabbatical. They want some send their students on internship, and there's also professorial chairs. So can any of these professorial chair or sabbatical be a project be articulated in this regard? Because everybody is keen to find a solution, and that solution space can come from Nigeria.
Absolutely, thank you. So Dr. Ladipo again says, Nigeria has quantified the contributions from several renewable energy sources in a policy document. Solar, for example, will contribute about 6%, while realizing the overarching importance of gas. How much do you think the various contributions from geoscience-led specific solutions can contribute to this plan?
No, thanks, Dr. Babakene, as we call you. So I think I haven't seen this document though. But I think it is good that we also play a role in this type of documentations, right? I know recently NAPE even played a role in one of the documents that I think COMEC wanted to release. So that means we can play a role in the policy advocacy, as was mentioned earlier on. But I think what comes to mind, Babakene, now is that gas, as you rightly put together, is our strength. Everybody knows it's going to remain for a longer time, and this is our strength. So it's good to solve the other problem of tomorrow, but can we even leverage and maximize the one we have today? The gas we have is I think we've just scratched the gas that we have in this country. Is scratched. We haven't really. I mean, in the Anambra Basin, is almost nothing. In the PIA that was passed, there is 30% money from the profit that is going to come from oil and gas that is channeled into frontier basin exploration. Where is those frontier? It is in the Cretaceous basin of this world. What are you likely going to find in those Cretaceous basins of this world? It's going to be, gas, high temperature. So can we really leverage and increase the share in that mix of our gas to say, okay, if solar is going to do, 6%, I don't know what gas is doing today. Can we even up the gas to even have the power that we need today? And then others can now follow with regards to this. But I agree we can contribute to this, Babakene, in this kind of policy document that you referred to.
Okay, so the next one I'm going to take is, someone wants to know whether this will be available, this presentation will be available on the NAPE YouTube channel for replay. I'm going to, when I hand over back to Dr. Dim, I'm sure he'll be able to answer that question. So Uzoma wants to know, Johnbosco, what is the geothermal potential and what are the opportunities for this in Nigeria? to geothermal energy?
Yeah. So I think Dr. Kenny alluded to this a little bit. So I think the opportunity comes in from today. I know we don't have too many high temperature wells, but we are doing stuff in that regards. And also for the fact that most of these high temperature, maybe high pressure well is going to be largely in the gas domain, which most companies are moving into right now. So there is that opportunity, like Dr. Kenny mentioned. But also, it can also be a targeted approach to look for where we have high geothermal gradients, like I mentioned. And I think Ebi Marshall has mentioned it in one session I joined. And I think that high temperature gradient you see largely in the Western transform margin, around those Kitipupa, Lagos going into Togo, that axis. Could we be targeting in that direction? It's open for us to go and research. Other than that, we just have to go and target the high temperature wells that we already drilled. And by the way, you don't even need to do a new well. Maybe it's well we already drilled. It could be a dry well that we drilled in instead of finding oil and gas, we'll find water that is high temperature. Can we now convert that high water to value? Uzoma.
So Dr. Livinus wants to know, he said, despite the Nigerian Gas Master Plan and the PIA, an important incident as the recent gas flare that lasted for weeks in Enugu was nipped in the bud by plugging and abandonment. The right authorities and regulatory bodies were involved, and yet they were not forthcoming. Are there things that individual geoscientists can do to actualize development of gas as a transition energy and for local utility?
No, thanks, Dr. Livinus. There are some things that are within our control. There are some things that are outside our control. Just like the insecurity we have in the Niger Delta today. There's not much oil companies can do. The security forces have to do their work. And that same thing comes in here. We all are aware it was highly publicized, the gas flare fire that happened at the Enugu. Again, you can take the horse to the water. You can't force the horse to drink the water. So, it was all publicized. What have they done? But I think there's a solution space, Dr. Livinus, I see. And the solution space I see is that, and it comes with a good news, that recently National Assembly passed a law. I don't know whether it has been signed by the president, but they signed a law to decouple the things that are in the exclusive list of the federal government around power generation. Because before now, if you generate power, you must put it on the national grid and distribute. But I think they've now brought it down that the states can now generate their own power if it's signed into law. So that means it's closer home. So rather than waiting for the federal government and authorities to come and help us do this, the states can now be empowered to do so. And the states now, they're all campaigning now, right? Saying what they want to do. Some of them have energy transition plan. I know one governor that did. So the question is, can we, even the Enugu you mentioned as an example, can it be localized? What can the state do with this type of gas to really and use this as a cluster? Because we need to have clusters of power generation. And these clusters of power generation can be on the state-by-state basis. And these gas that are all nearby, that may not be quite expensive to really, or that will be expensive to lay the pipeline to go and sell, can be used for that local area and local community where you use and use it for power. Right? I know there was when I was working in the UK North Sea, so we had this shallow gas as a hazard. And then what we said is that rather than avoid this shallow hazard, can we go and target it and use it to get the gas that we use to power the facility in the platform rather than as a hazard? So transform it to, so that's what we need to do in this regard. And that same thing goes for not just the gas, but also even the northern states that may not have the gas. They can also have they have the sunlight, generate the power, have a power pack, generate their solar, and then, power your state in the north. And then in the south, if there's a state that has a gas, like you said, it might not be economical or commercial to export and pipeline, but the quantity might be good enough to generate power for Enugu State. That's where we need to start thinking to bring it home rather than waiting for the federal authority, Dr. Livinus.
Okay, somebody is telling me that there are people that are raising their hands, so I should pay attention to that. That may be so, but I'm sorry that
I think the
way it's set up, I can't see the hands that are raised. So
I think they've done it through QMA. I think they've done it through QIA.
I'm sorry?
They've done it through an A. They've typed it. They sent it as a text, and we've responded.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
Prince Will and Nosike.
Okay, great. Because I just realized that I couldn't see the hands that were raised. So I think, we have, let me take a question from, just a minute, please. There is a question from Dr. Emmanuel, again, who says, thank you for igniting this discussion. I guess he's talking about the research.
Yeah.
He says, I look forward to NAPE and NMGS leading the collaboration because even agricultural sector has a lot of carbon wastes that we can harness. Can NAPE and NMGS take this lead? Okay, so where that is not really a question, I think it's a comment and more of a suggestion. So I'm sure that we have NAPE and we have a lot of people from the UAP here that can perhaps, when they're talking about the next UAP session, perhaps that will be something that can be upgraded to, push forward. Ibrahim Dong wants to know, can you suggest 3 potential areas, high impact areas of research with respect to energy transition? I think we already, this topic about energy transition, carbon capture and all that is one of them. Perhaps you would like to talk about a couple of others.
No, thanks, Madonna. So you are absolutely right. We talked on some of them already. The only one I want to add, Ibrahim Dong, is I now remember is the pit. I wanted to mention before is pit, and why I think is a research we can also do locally is that again today China is looking at how to do batteries that can last when you charge your phone. Maybe for 1 week you don't need to charge the phone again, because the sources of the energy transition, the sources of the renewable. Is going to be heavily dependent on battery. That is going to make or mar the energy transition with regards to renewable, because it's about storage. If you cannot store the energy, forget it. We're joking. So it's the longevity of the storage, be it in solar, be it in the wind energy, that will really determine how far we can go, including the electric vehicles that we have. These days we have the stories, right? The Teslas of this world. You've got a car. How far can you drive? How many kilometers can you drive before you have to recharge? That's the problem. So if we can fix the problem of the battery and longevity of the battery, then we'll make a huge leap. And one way we, geoscientists, as you asked, just to add another one, is in that research. I know some folks are doing it, but can we also do it locally? Well, we have coal, lignite, we have peat in this country, in Enugu, not just in Enugu, all around. So the question is, can we do a bit of research how to, rather than use lithium or cobalt or lead cell for the battery, are there other minerals that we have in Nigeria, including peat, that is being tested, that can be used and demonstrate that can help with the battery longevity? Maybe that's something, it might look long time, but you never can tell. So that's what I would suggest, Ibrahim, in addition to the one we already discussed.
So I think we've about covered it. So I don't see any other. There's okay, Dr. Adalbi, please, your hand is raised. Can you ask your question?
Good afternoon once more to everyone. Thank you, JB, for the wonderful, highly informative lecture. My question is, do you think this energy transition and climatic changes issue is a bit politicized nationwide, worldwide? Is a bit, do you think it's a bit politicized? Because if you look at what is happening now, African countries are among the least emitters of greenhouse gases. I think Africa, if you check the world chart on the emissions, you see that African nations are among the least emitters. But if you look at the burden now, we carry the burden most, in that we are not, our technology is still developing and otherwise. And if you, for example, Germany now, if we are conversant with what is happening, Germany now is now going back to the use of coal. In fact, they started importing coal from China due to this Ukrainian Russian issues now. So many countries, many European countries are moving back to the use of coal. So with all this now, do you think this issue of energy transition is a bit politicized? What do you have to say about it?
No, thank you, Dr. Ada.
An interesting question, I have to say, an interesting question.
No, thank you very much. So I've got an answer to some of the answer to provide, but let me also use this opportunity to, I know the PE will be happy that I also market the pre-conference workshop that we're going to be having on the 26th of October. So we have Professor Adiola Denekinju, who is a research professor, well experienced in terms of what happens. He's consulted for UN, for European unions, and global. And he's going to, on the 26th, he's going to be x-raying the geopolitics of energy transition as a sub-theme, or
Okay.
So watch out that space. He's going to help us really to provoke the impact of the geopolitics extensively as more research. But I would say chip in a little bit. I think you're right, because in terms of number, Africa emission with regards to CO2 is less than 3%, right? So the question is why the whole noise around, we Africa moving at the same pace. But I think right now everybody understands that we shouldn't move at the same pace. Before now, I know some of you might have attended the NIES conference last year at Abuja, where the ministers of, I think, Gabon, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Ghana were all saying, hey guys, the ambassador, one of the ambassadors of the Western country was saying, they've made a decision now that if you're investing in oil and gas, they are not going to fund your company. They won't fund that investment. That's what that ambassador said. And the ministers, the African ministers, 4 of them are saying, no, you can't tell us that. We've got it. In fact, the minister for Nigeria told the Ghana, that Nigeria, even if they stop us now, we've already made some money. But Ghana, you just came into the party and they said, stop, the party has ended. So the Africa has taken a stand that we can't go at the same pace. It's about the
You can't go at the same pace, yes.
It's also about the energy poverty I mentioned. And it's been agreed now by the European Union that indeed gas has a big role to play. And now investment can actually come in that regards. But having said that, Dr. Ada, let's also recognize that the issue of the climate change is real. I don't think that bit is about politics. It is real. And therefore, in as much as we go at a different pace, we have to fix the problem of energy and the climate change, because it's real by the activities of the man. And that's why I think all these issues around moving into energy transition to renewable and solar is good in the long term, but like we all agreed, we need the mix of everything. None of them can solve all the problems. We need both. So what is not good is to say, stop this one because you want to do this one. No, we have to go in parallel as we gradually, at the pace of Africa, transit using the transition fuel of gas before we go fully into the solar space. So that's where I will answer you, Dr. Ada.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnbosco. We're right on time, but I have Mrs. Nia Falabi has her hand up, so I'll just let her ask that question. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, JB. Thank you very much for this lecture. Ada's question brought me to the recent news I saw about Nigeria asking for debt cancellation in exchange for carbon emission, for reduction in carbon emission. When I first saw it, I was like, does it mean that it doesn't affect us as well? Why do we have to ask for debt cancellation before we can comply? Do you have anything to say about it?
No, thanks, Madam Noe. So what I think, so I saw that news when the VP visited the US, actually. And I think it's a good move. Somehow is the first comment I want to make. But remember that the commitment that Nigeria made at the nationally determined contribution is that we are going to reduce our emission only by 20% based on business as usual. And based on what we do today, by 2030, 20%. But they also then committed and say, hey guys, but we can do 47%. And for us to do 47%, we need the international community support, either funding or whatever means, which I think is the bucket that the Office of the VP is looking for in terms of this debt cancellation. Because what that then means is that it's going to help us to accelerate and do more than 20%. By if some of those fund debts that we owe can be agreed that it can be used to develop this energy transition, space by either investing in solar, by capacity building, by training, by investment, right? I don't think it's a bad act to say, well, we want to do this, but can you help us? Because you're also pushing us, like Dr. Ada asked, you're pushing us to say we must move fast. But okay, fine, we want to move fast, but help us as well. So that's the way. So it's also part of politics, but I think it's not a bad thing to do, to say, okay, fine, I want to invest $2 million in solar panel, but that $2 million, can you take it off from what I'm owing you, so that it will be easier for me, so that I can achieve the 47% that we promised you. That's the way I will answer it, Madam.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, JB. I think we're out of questions and we can wrap up. So let me throw as chairperson, let me just throw the very last question to you. And that would be also about this politics of climate change, as well as, how countries can exploit this. And looking at Nigeria's situation, recently it was in the news that the Minister for Solid Minerals was turned down the Elon Musks of this world, that we cannot be exploiting our lithium resources if they are not building battery facilities here. So we're looking at not only exploiting, and you see that happening not only in the oil industry, a failure of developing the downstream, not only for employment, but also utilizing our own resources. We see that with our refineries. And now we're looking at energy, mineral resources. So what exactly do you think that the government or the industry and us as geoscientists can do to make sure that we don't make those same mistakes, and try to push policies that will ensure that we develop the end use capabilities as well? So we're not marketing, we're not selling off just our reserves and our resources, but also able to develop the end use so that we can maximize what we have.
Yeah. No, thanks, madam. Yeah. No, I think I like the way you summarize it. And also let me even add that, again, the way I want to look at this, I was discussing with Cynthia, and again, what I heard first say was, can we move away from the, seeing as exploitation, but also about sustainability is the other way to look at it. And if you look at what has also happened in the past, there's also been a drive for some of the, I think it's also federal government that said the car manufacturers, you also have to come and do your plant in Nigeria, right? So that we can buy your car. We've also seen in the past where they say we are doing bid round to award you an oil block. You also have to have a commitment to build a modular refinery, for example, in country. So the question is, in this climate change drive, can we also tie some things to it? And maybe it comes back to the point that we discussed around the university. So can the university also, in the geoscience departments, help us to package, how to develop and the capacity building of our young, graduates, such that there will be investment in this area, and then people are also asked to, manufacturing of the batteries. Can you also do it in this country? But Madam Doja, let me also tell you that, because I'm aware that I have a privy information that Olon, and I think they may say this publicly, that is quite active in the renewable space and solar, is now bringing in some of the materials in country, some of the materials in country to assemble the solar panel, rather than importing the panels only. So there's a drive to say, okay, fine, can we empower some food? And they're doing so, I think, in Jos. There's a company in Jos that is already assembling those panels by just getting the material, just like Scenes of this world or the car people, they just get the material, then they assemble. Can we also do the same thing in the solar space? So, the question is, can we also do in geoscience related activities? So I do agree, we have to play that game to take advantage of, what is happening globally, madam.
So thank you so much, JB, and thank you so much to everyone that has contributed in terms of asking the questions and encouraging this really interesting and brilliant discussions. Mr. Chairman, I am going to turn it over to you to thank our guest speaker. And I must say thank you very much, JB, for not only taking the time to give the presentation, but the engagement and the discussions that followed thereafter. So, Mr. Chairman, sir, I return this. I am giving the microphone back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deja. Thank you very much. Kafa, you can hear me?
Yep. Yes.
All right. Wow, wow. Am I the only one that doesn't want this thing to end? Quite cool. I mean, thank you very much, Aga JB. Thank you, Madam Deja. This is superb. This is superb. I want to thank many. There are a lot of people on the call. We had over 70 of them, top managers. Oga, we saw Kenny there, still on the call, KK there. Our vice president is on the call. We've been trying to move him to the panelist, but I don't know whether he's stopping it. We also have the immediate past president. That's our own IPP, we fondly call her, Patricia. A lot of people, KK is on the call. I can't, a lot of ESCOs. Before I call on our PE to give a vote of thanks, we have a tradition in Awka Owerri chapter. What we usually do, once it's physical, we hand in the plaque personally. But what we have done now, the plaque is on transit. You get the plaque. We have immediately sent you an email and also in your WhatsApp. If you check now, we usually do that, give it to our guest speaker. I don't know, our guest speaker, can you confirm that you have seen your E-award? And also our chairman, can you confirm either in your WhatsApp or your email that you have seen our E-award?
Yes, I've received something. Dear coordinator, yes, I have something.
Yeah.
I'm just opening it now. Yes, exactly. Yes, confirm that, Dr. Dim.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the NAPE president and on behalf of the ESCO of Awka Owerri chapter and our advisory committee, we want to thank you for this superb present. I want to tell you, you have more challenges coming to you after this. I mean, more platform to present. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Deja, in fact, there is something Maduwai pointed out that you did that I didn't know. Do you know somehow you have opened up an opportunity for chair professors? You have also opened out some opportunity for proposals for those going for their PhD and postdoctoral in the carbon capture, sequestration, and storage.
I'm hoping that people will take that as a challenge because it's really important. It's a vacuum that is just looking to be filled, and I'm sure that JB also mentioned that NCDMB has the resources and the funds, but I know that IOCs are also interested in this field right now. It's pretty hot, so it's a win-win situation.
Sure.
If we have touch in this regard,
Sure. Thank you. This I would like to before we have the announcement. Okay, there is an announcement before. I don't know, Tunde. If you're up, before we call the president-elect, who is giving the announcement?
You can go ahead and give it, Dr. Dave.
Oh, okay. Project for me. Yeah. So we just have our technical meeting. Like you are already aware, come 13th through 17th is our annual conference. We had an early bird space, which I think is almost at its near end, but yet all of us can still be part of. This is all going to be physical. The last time we had hybrid, the little fiscal was something else. We are able to realize what COVID has been denying us. So you cannot afford to miss this ever fiscal conference coming up once again. And the theme, like we all know, is global energy transition and the future of oil and gas industry, evolving regulations, emerging concepts, and opportunity. I mean, this is a tip of iceberg to what is coming up in the conference. And you could see the flyers. The flyers have been sent even at the NMGS conference, even at NAIS. We have been sharing this flyer, even in our mails. If you are a registered member up to date, you would have been getting these emails. Students, the amount to be paid by students, foreign, active members, and what have we. So please, leverage on this opportunity to be there at November. Don't be told. Don't be told. Next. Yeah. So we also have a lot coming up in our pre-conference workshop. You can't miss the best of these people talking. A lot of key experts have been called in to deliver. And this comes up for the first time. We are having a pre-conference workshop, not for the first, but for a long while now. We are trying to bring it in before the main conference. And this is coming up in October. So avail yourself the opportunity to get the best out of this. The best have been brought in to give us what it takes. Just take a look at what we had this today. You can now imagine what NAPE has prepared for us. Don't miss out. Take it all through all the chapters. I know a lot of chapter coordinators are represented here, even the UK and what have we. Yeah. And interestingly, this is the brainchild of our president. For the first time, we are having a golf tournament. Come one, come all, at a relatively cheap price. Find yourself, relieve all the pressure. There are a lot of stress in the country. You can't beat that. Take out time, make a travel to Akwa Ibom, and you'll be surprised. This is the best you can get from NAPE. I mean, it doesn't come better than this. If you want to do this, you have to pay a lot, but NAPE is bringing it at a cheaper price. As many, we know we talk to schools. Schools are encouraged to take up stands. Establishments, there are still opportunity to take up some spaces in our Atiko hotel. Yeah. So please, if you have something to exhibit, don't hesitate to reach out to the secretariat. You will be guided properly. So what are you waiting for? Update your membership. Make sure if you're still owing, update so that you can vote. As we speak now, vote in new ESCOs is currently on. So you cannot vote if you're not up to date, if you're not an up-to-date member. So do that and get in the best hand to pilot the affairs of our society and association. Thank you once again. You have listened to this. And this is like the last. And you say, wait for the last, you get the sweetest. This is the last from Awka Owerri chapter in the technical, for their technical meeting. This is the final we are having for this year so that we can, sponge here or go into the conference proper. Thank you very much. Like I said, election is on. So these are some of the key people that you may need to vote for. Then they can just flash through them. The question is, have you done? Have you voted? If you have not voted, do well to do so. Some of these people are on the call. All of them are active members of NAPE. Each of them can serve us well. Just let's give any of them opportunity to serve us. Why? Even if you don't win this time, you can still stay and still serve NAPE in various capacity. All right. On this note, I would like to call on our president-elect to please thank us for this. Hang on as we still have a networking after this. My president-elect.
Thank you, Dr. Dim. Thanks for putting this together. Just want to first thank the speaker, Johnbosco, Uche, for this very enlightening and thought-provoking presentation. I think the amount of questions and the energy level in the room and also in virtual space lend credence to the to the excitement and this presentation yielded. I think, like I mentioned yesterday during the chapter's presentation, this will continue to expand the career path of budding geoscientists and mid-career enthusiasts. So thank you very, very much, JB, for this. To our very able past president and chairperson of this session, Mrs. Ojala BF, NAPE, FNMGS. Thank you for helping to steer the affairs of this session today. Thank you to the entire Awka Owerri chapter for the energy level. It was a testament to the great work that they did in putting this together. Dr. Okeke, for the opening prayers and starting off for us. Dr. Chinwoko, I hope I got that right, the GenSec for the safety briefing. And also to members of the EXCO on the call, as well as our fellows, members of the Board of Trustees, members of the Advisory Council, members of the association, and also the members of the secretariat staff who work in the background to ensure that these sessions go on hitch-free. So thank you all for your participation. I just want to throw one more thing in. I think Dr. Diman mentioned a number of things leading to our conference, the main conference in November. But we also have a charity walk in about 2.5 weeks in Lagos for all those who will be available. November 15th on Saturday in Lekki, I will have a 5-kilometer walk, and all I encourage to please participate in this event that kicks off the 2022 NAPE conference. So again, thank you so much for your time, and all the very best.
Thank you very much, Mike B, for that wonderful close-up. It's a wonderful.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, it's a wonderful afternoon. What a very good way to go for lunch. It's good to have you again, Madam Doja. It's our pleasure. If it was in Awka, we have to take you somewhere so that you eat some intelligent fish.
Don't worry, the IPP, Madam IPP can testify.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much, JB, for such excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam.
All right. Yeah. Do have yourself a lovely afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dim. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.